Hey everybody, it's Cass and Court TV. It's your girl, Miss Public Info, here with the latest and greatest and sometimes hated updates of the most high-profile cases going on around the country. Now, this evening, we're going to talk about Sean Combs and his refiled defamation suit that he has out against Courtney Burgess and Courtney Burgess's attorney, Ariel Mitchell. He's added on News Nation. Let's talk about it. Now, what has occurred is the fact that Sean Combs in January filed a defamation suit against Burgess and Mitchell following their interview that they did with News Nation, advertising that they had received, or Burgess had received, 11 flash drives from a friend, an unnamed source friend, that featured several photographs, videos, things of that nature. Of course, this wasn't shown on News Nation, but it was told during the interview. Burgess did say that this information was on the interview. He's also the same one. He's also the same person that is said to have received flash drives from Kim Porter to produce this book, which Combs's team and the family's attorney, rather, put a stop to. Kim Porter's children actually put a stop to this book, which was on Amazon for a number of days. And this information was said to be a flash drive to from Kim Porter to Courtney Burgess, someone allegedly that she's allegedly trusted and entrusted to actually publish the book upon her death. Now, all of this is sort of up in the air. All of this has been a part of the ongoing rumor mill. But the problem with these sorts of rumors and these sorts of, alleged information happening is because it is very dangerous information that could damage one's reputation. So it's unfounded. We've not seen any of the information that Courtney Burgess says that he has on these flash drives. Courtney Burgess did actually testify in front of a grand jury. He testified in front of the grand jury. We don't know exactly what he shared with the grand jury, but we do know he was not utilized at trial. He did not show up on the witness list, or if he did, they did not utilize him from that witness list. Talking about the Department of Justice, excuse me. So, having said that, Courtney Burgess is really sort of like one of multiple characters in this ongoing saga of everybody against Sean Combs, as it relates to, them sort of just saying, he's done this, that, and the third. But the difference between this account and, say, the account from Combs's long-term a, a security guard is the fact that these are not firsthand accounts. These are accounts that come from a third party source onto other folks. So this is where things get hairy with defamation. Now, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago where I talked to you guys about a defamation lawsuit that was being filed against Shay Shay Media, Shannon Sharp, and Ocho Cinco as it relates to a woman in Chicago, which a defamation suit that was tossed by federal court. Now, this particular defamation suit that Sean Combs has refiled from January of this year is a little bit different. Now, defamation is damaging one's good name. And in order for it to be defamation, it's false statements. It's utilizing false statements in the public, whether it's written, which is libel, or spoken, which is slander, and that could potentially damage this person's good name, damage this person's reputation, and also damage this person's way of life, meaning it could damage the very mode of the way in which they make money to take care of themselves and their families. So while each state has varying standards of defamation and the requirements thereof, those elements that I just mentioned are sort of like the basic bottom line as it relates to defamation. And it has to come from a third party source. And that's where Courtney Burgess and his attorney, Ariel Mitchell, are getting into trouble. Now, Ariel Mitchell, I'm very surprised at her. She is an attorney. She's one that's been around. It's not like she's a newbie fresh out of law school. I'm very surprised that she would sort of put herself on this News Nation interview, which we're going to get into here in a minute, and then, get into a situation where she's a party to some questionable information. Now, the only way that this information is not defamation is if it's true. Now, it's very possible that it could be. We don't know. I've not seen anything on these tapes and flash drives. Neither have you. Neither has anyone. I guess the only person that would know that any of these things existed would be Courtney Burgess and Ariel Mitchell, who have supposedly gone through these flash drives. Now, as it relates to the Kim Porter's, book of it all, the family, the children said that this was completely false. Obviously, some people have their doubts about whether or not that's true, because that sort of messaging could be coming from Combs himself and funneling through his children, which we know is something that has happened in the past. So people are a little bit skeptical about whether or not this book is in fact false. It was yanked from Amazon almost immediately. There are some people that got their hands on it. Those people have been on, YouTube and other places sort of reading it through for people to hear. And it's just, but all in all, it's been called a false. Now, one could say maybe it's been already been proven that Courtney Burgess's flash drive story isn't true, because of the fact that he actually testified before a grand jury at the subpoena of the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice did not utilize him as a witness. But I would stop short of saying that before actually having proof that it isn't true, just because of the fact that the Department of Justice not utilizing him as a witness doesn't mean that any of the information that he gave was not credible or couldn't be backed up or couldn't be proven or anything like that. It's just could have been they just decided they had enough to go on, and the witnesses that they had were enough. But regardless, it sounds like Combs's team is sort of going after the fact that this guy wasn't utilized during trial. He, did go through the interview process and talk to the Department of Justice. He did go on a very truncated media campaign talking about all of the information that he had, until the Department of Justice quieted him down and said, you can't talk anymore. Leading up to the trial, Courtney Burgess was talking to everyone. But this suit that Sean Combs has refiled, it is a $100 million suit, and it is seeking those damages from the plaintiffs, Courtney Burgess, his attorney, Ariel Mitchell, and News Nation. The News Nation parent company is NexStar. The suit points to an October interview with Burgess, October 2024, of course, with Burgess, and a September interview with Mitchell, in which the two discuss the alleged video footage Burgess states he possesses, showing Combs allegedly sexually assaulting celebrities, some of whom appear underage. Now, Justin Bieber, he comes up in the conversation on this one. One interview saw Burgess present still images allegedly from the videos. We don't even know if they actually came from the videos. None of this has been confirmed in any kind of way, but this is a photo in which Justin Bieber was shown kissing an unidentified male. Now, I don't know if this was a passionate kiss or if this was a friendly kiss or anything like that, but that is what it showed. In the amended complaint, which was filed yesterday on August 11th, Monday, August 11th, in New York Southern District Court. Combs is seeking no less than $100 million in damages for the severe reputational harm, in quotes, caused by Burgess's, in quotes, outlandish claims. It says Combs's attorneys allege a culminated in a media frenzy against the mogul. So, like I said, Burgess and Mitchell went on this very public, very verbose media blitz as it related to these flash drives, as it related to, the proof of the Justin Bieber of it all. The allegations aired on News Nation over multiple interviews, also included an assertion from Burgess that Combs' late ex partner. The Hollywood Reporter is actually referring to Kim Porter as Combs's late ex-wife, which is very interesting because to my knowledge, they were not married and they never got married. But if someone has any information on that, we would like to know. The court, Cast and Court TV would like to know. But he claims that uh, Burgess claimed in these interviews that Kim Porter, the late Kim Porter, gave him a copy of her memoir, which is what all that I was mentioning earlier, and tapes of the alleged celebrity sexual assault before she died in 2018. Now, when all of this was going on, there were a lot of murmurings from different camps. Some camps that were close to Kim Porter, some camps that weren't, that were kind of like, what you do in the dark shall come to the light. So all of this is very interesting that this is being mentioned in this lawsuit. And on the Justin Bieber front of it, we've noticed, especially in this last year, that Justin Bieber has really been doing a lot of sort of public, um, the term people are using now, a lot of public crash outs where he is being seen, really sort of like going off on people. He's very gaunt. He seems depressed. Now he just had a son, I believe, late in 2024. So obviously that can add pressure as a new father, as a new parent with his wife Haley Bieber. But it was suspicious to a lot of people that maybe the cause of all of these crash outs was because of this, Sean Combs trial, and that his name was being mentioned multiple times, that people were alleging that he was being taken advantage of when he was coming up, that he was being taken advantage of by Combs at different, parties. Now, there's an infamous video that we are not playing here on Cast and Court TV, but there is an infamous video that's been going around the internet, YouTube particular, where a very young Justin Bieber is shown with Sean Combs, and Sean Combs is saying, "Hey, it's gonna be me and you today. Don't you tell anybody, about what goes on when you're with me, and this, that, and the third." And so people have sort of raised their eyebrows a little bit at that because this kid was very young and he was left in his care. And that, coupled with all of these allegations, a lot of them coming from Courtney Burgess, sort of made people sort of raise their eyebrows and say, "Hey, what's going on here? This seems like there was foul play." And so, Justin Bieber during this time, he actually ended up getting cerebral palsy, which, one side of the face doesn't move. It kind of um, sometimes that's brought on by stress. He's had multiple episodes where he's had some sort of public meltdown. I think there was one recently. And it's just been really hard for him. And people have been saying, poor Justin, there's a lot of YouTubers talking about this, talking about the fact that they know for sure that something went on with, Combs and Bieber. Here at Cast and Court TV, we don't get into the rumor mill of it all, but we will address things that are brought up in court, in open court filings and things of that nature. And from our perspective, as it relates to the court of it all, to the filing of it all, we've not seen any accusations, any actual, real, tangible accusations coming from Justin Bieber's camp coming after Sean Combs and saying he did these things while I was in his care. So there's really no tangible evidence that says that this all went on as it relates to the court. But as it relates to the court of public opinion, there are many who are saying that allegedly these things happen in this sort of relationship, that they had some sort of alleged more than a mogul mentee relationship, and that allegedly there were inappropriate going on there. And the video that is being shown allegedly shows the both of them sort of talking and having a good time and everything. But Bieber is then told by Combs, like, you don't talk about what we do, sort of thing. And people are alleging that that is some sort of, foul play, that is some sort of odd behavior that it was happening at the time that shouldn't have been happening. So all of this is alleged as it relates to the Bieber of it all. But as it relates to this lawsuit that Sean Combs has filed against Courtney Burgess and his attorney Ariel Mitchell, as well as NexStar, who owns News Nation, that is very real. And I want to give a quote of a response in all of this, and it says the following. I'm sorry, not a response, but from Combs's camp, and it says the following: in this pitiful spectacle, all pretense of objectivity has been abandoned. As a global audience feasts at the all-you-can-eat buffet of wild lies and conspiracy theories, the lawsuit states. Mitchell and Burgess are among the worst perpetrators in the offensive scenario. They eagerly court every opportunity to broadcast blatant falsehoods, pretending they have proof that Mr. Combs engaged in heinous acts, throwing, knowing that no such proof exists. And this is from Combs's team. And they go on because um, she, well, actually, this article by the Hollywood Reporter actually goes on and talks about the Bieber of it all. They say Burgess, who was subpoenaed by federal prosecutors to testify in front of a grand jury considering additional charges against Sean Combs, was asked in a News Nation interview if the alleged image of Bieber is legit, to which Burgess responded, yes, yes, definitely. He also said on News Nation that of the 8 celebrities seen in the footage, 2 or 3 appeared to be minors, according to the earlier lawsuit. Now, I remember this. I remember hearing about these folks being minors. That Courtney Burgess had this. Proof, and then seeing Courtney Burgess and his attorney going into the federal court building there in Southern District of New York, knowing that he was getting ready to testify in front of the Department of Justice. I thought for sure that some of the counts that we saw against him in the final trial would include sex with minors, but it did not. And so a lot of people took that as, well, then it wasn't true. It doesn't mean it wasn't true. It just means that Courtney Burgess, his version of it, and I'm not saying it is true either, but what I'm saying is because the DOJ did not use Courtney Burgess during the trial court phase of this case, doesn't exactly mean that his information wasn't legitimate. It just mean, or that it could be anybody, that just because someone isn't used rather in the trial court phase and they interviewed with the Department of Justice doesn't mean that their information isn't legitimate. It just means that perhaps for whatever reason the Department of Justice has decided that they were going to go with who they had. It could also mean maybe that they didn't have enough witnesses to actually, confirm that they too saw this particular thing. Again, doesn't mean it isn't true. It just doesn't mean that, it just means that maybe they didn't have enough support to back up these particular claims. And so they didn't go with that particular witness, and therefore they didn't include any of these counts that Burgess is, accusing Combs of in this News Nation interview. They go on to say, the article goes on to say the News Nation is accused in the complaint of lending its credibility to and amplifying Burgess and Mitchell's lies, giving them a mainstream media platform to malign Combs for defendants' collective profit. Now, if you all recall the Jaguar Wright interview that she did with Pierce Morgan, and she's talking about Sean Jay-Z Carter, did what Sean Combs's camp just said about News Nation, sort of lending their credibility to Burgess and his attorney, is very similar to what Sean Carter said about Pierce Morgan and Jaguar Wright, that they were providing this platform for her to come on and talk negatively and give unfounded information about Sean Carter, and wanted Pierce Morgan to scrap the interview. That's very similar language to what Combs's team is saying now. The difference is, they stopped that interview in terms of stopped it from, airing any further, versus Combs's team, who's coming in the aftermath and saying, nope, you guys did it, you and you guys are responsible. Now, I also want to say it's very abnormal for a news organization not to sort of check this thing out. If Burgess is coming up with this information and saying, oh, I have these 11 flash drives, this is proof, da 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 da. Most news or organizations will actually have to see the information for themselves, even if they don't end up publishing it. They have to have some sort of proof that this is actually what he's saying it is, so that they don't get into this sort of, libel or slander trouble. So it's going to be interesting to see how this actually ends up panning out. Let's go ahead and play the video, the actual interview that Combs did with Ashley Banfield, not Combs, I'm so sorry guys, with that Burgess and his attorney did with Ashley Banfield. We're going to, which is on News Nation. We're going to play a little bit of this, and then we'll talk after to see, to go through it.
Belonged to the late Kim Porter. And if you follow this story, you'll know that Kim Porter is Diddy's ex-girlfriend and the mother of 4 of his kids. On those drives, the witness says 8 videos featured 8 celebrities at Diddy freak-offs or parties, and that 6 were males, 2 were females. The drive also included a manuscript of an alleged Kim Porter memoir, a memoir that her 4 kids insist is fake. Courtney Burgess told his story on a podcast before he told the grand jury today, and after he told the grand jury, and I mean immediately after, he booked it over to my set, and he and his attorney talked to me. I should tell you that he was very limited in how much detail he could go into about his testimony. And because the 8 people in the videos, the 8 celebrities in the videos, were allegedly victims of sex crimes, we know who they are, but we will not be naming them, famous or not. Here now is my conversation with Courtney Burgess and Ariel Mitchell, who's his attorney, beginning with the question of whether the participants in the video even knew they were being recorded. Were there any cameras in places where you'd assume privacy, like bathrooms?
Well, I've never been in this house, but the picture, yes. That's what took place.
You're aware of surreptitious cameras that were recording in private places like bathrooms.
I didn't see the cameras. You could tell how the person was angled. I knew that it was a camera there because I was there. I wasn't there. I don't know if the person was too tall, he was holding it or whatever, but I wasn't there.
May I ask you this, Courtney? And Ariel, you can jump in on this as well, but I want to hear from Courtney first. Your home was raided by federal authorities, and I assume it is because of this material. Is that true?
I wouldn't say that. They just went to every one of them looking for me. They said,
Okay, we're gonna stop there, guys. So Here's the thing, Courtney in this interview with Ashley Banfield, and we have provided the link to the entire interview in the description box there. He's very vague, and as she stated, he had just come from the grand jury, so he's very limited on what he had to say. He was very vague. He says you can hear him say, well, I wasn't there. He keeps repeating, I wasn't there, I wasn't there, to sort of absolve himself from sort of like, not really giving the full story, but also absolving himself from any responsibility as it relates to legitimizing what is actually on the videotapes that he's talking about. He also intimates, or Ashley Banfield in her questioning also intimates that perhaps, there are video images where you're not really seeing a person's whole body, that the cameras are sort of conspicuously put in places that maybe people didn't know that they were videotaped, because our question to Courtney Burgess was, do we know if the people were aware that they were being videotaped? These 8 celebrities, these 6 men, these 2 women, a few of them who were minors. And his answer was, well, it seems like they were sort of like, their hair were cut off, but I wasn't there. I don't really know. And this, that, and the third. So that to me was a little bit shaky when I first saw this interview some months ago. There's a reason why I've not talked about a lot of these allegations that have been launched against Mr. Combs, because much of these allegations are unfounded. Now, people in the public court of opinion feel like, oh no, we know right away that these allegations are founded. But all of these civil lawsuits that have been flying through the air, I believe there's some 80 of them. Some people say there's 60. I heard a count of 80 at one point from a reliable news source. So I don't even know, how many there are, but we know that they're in multiples, that there are multiple lawsuits, and that a lot of these lawsuits seem frivolous, but some of them seem like they sort of edge on the legitimate side, because they sound much like sort of what we've heard before in a lot of these lawsuits. But the civil lawsuits are something that Combs is going to be fighting for a while. And again, he's bound to lose some of these just because of the fact that, the burden of proof in civil court is 50%. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. So this lawsuit that he has against Burgess, News Nation, Ariel, Mitchell, this $100 million lawsuit could possibly offset in numbers the other lawsuits that he has against him. I have no idea, but I know that this lawsuit, this defamation suit, is really interesting because, the information that Burgess gives is a little unbelievable. And I was saying at the time that he brought this out, I was saying that the information was unbelievable just because of the fact that we've not heard about Courtney Burgess before, Kim Porter's untimely passing. We didn't hear about him during the time that she passed. We certainly didn't hear about him um, during the time that she was alive. Not that, we would have, we don't know every person in her life. We don't know every friend that she has, every entrusted private confidant that she ever had. But the fact of the matter is, it seems like Courtney Burgess just came out of nowhere with this information. And he was very bold about presenting it, very bold about publishing Kim's book. All of that, even going into, if you watch or listen to some of these interviews that he's done with some, YouTube creators, because he's done a few, he's even gone into very specific, or gone into specifics about what Kim Porter allegedly told him about publishing this flash drive, this book, uh, in the event of, something happens to her, which is also very eerie that would even come up. So we're going to keep ourselves on this. We're going to stay on top of the Sean Combs of it all, of the defamation lawsuit of it all. But this is very interesting. I'm very, very interested to see how NexStar News Nation's parents company, how they actually respond to this, what they have to say about it. You can hear from Ashley Banfield's monologue going, or her intro monologue going into the interview with Burgess and Mitchell, that she had obviously, or someone there at News Nation on her show had obviously seen at least some of the images, the videos on these flash drives that Burgess had. There was something, someone had viewed them to confirm legitimacy, enough legitimacy to do the story, not enough legitimacy to pinpoint and be like, oh, yeah, that's him, or oh, yeah, that's that person, or whatever the case is. And this is sort of when they get into this Justin Bieber of it all and say that one of the video images shows Bieber kissing an unidentified, black male, which some say have speculated that it is Combs. Some have said they don't know who it is. Most people are saying it's unidentified, but none of us really know. We're going to stay on top of this, but one thing we do know is that Combs is not going down without a fight as it relates to his reputation. I think it's a very interesting time, because there was a news article that came out just over the weekend, sort of talking about the fact that Sean Combs, this was opinion, of course, that Sean Combs was kind of a little bit, delusional if he thought that, people in the industry would still want to sort of deal with him on a professional level, that professional people in industry would actually want to work with him. After his prison bid, after all of this is over, that, once this is over, would he be welcomed back into the industry? And this particular piece was just saying that it's delusional if he thinks that he's just going to hop back in and it's just going to be old times, because there are a lot of people that are sort of curbing him, or, just sort of, um, going out of their way to get around it because they don't want to deal with him on that level anymore, or just at all. And so this lawsuit coming up is very interesting, because on the tails of that opinion piece coming out, this is Sean Combs obviously trying to repair his reputation. Trying to do what he can to let people know that, what they're saying about me is not true. What they're saying about me, is especially this notion that he of information that he has abused celebrities, that he had tapes on celebrities, that these, tapes were these incidents were being taped without their knowledge, and some of these people were minors. And that's important, because if you're a guy like Sean Combs, who's very social and wants all of these people back in his circle and wants to get back into the circle, nobody's going to be comfortable going to his parties, because they're going to think that he's got video cameras everywhere. They're going to think that he's, taping people. Now, this was a huge thing. This is also very conspiracy alley, where a lot of people feel like, Combs, was the whole thing with the government, coming in, the DOJ bringing this case against him had to do with someone more important than him being on these tapes, and the Homeland Security going in to actually get the tape of that person. Of course, Cast and Court TV, and no one really knows how true or false really that is. But that is what a lot of conspiracy theorists have theorized, that, especially after the government's case could not yield a victory on the RICO. They said this case was nothing to begin with. This case was just pulled together. The raid was pulled together so they could get a video of Combs, that Combs had of someone that he, was videotaping in his, at one of his parties. Several news sources have said that Combs allegedly is, being sort of compared to a Hugh Hefner, or even a Epstein, who has these videos and bribery materials, in hand in case he ever needed them, sort of thing. So we're going to stay on the pulse of this. All of this sort of culminates between truth, conspiracy, not true, somewhat legitimate, not legitimate. You know what I mean? So Cast and Court TV is going to stick with the filings only, but it's very interesting to sort of go through all that we have heard about all of this, the menagerie of information that's out there, sort of stemming from the Courtney Burgess of it all, that he actually sort of confirmed a lot of the murmurings that were going on about these tapes, supposed tapes. And he said one day he just appeared and said, haha, I have these flash drives. So we're going to see where this all nets out, if this case ends up being dismissed, if Courtney Combs and Mitchell and News Nation or NexStar end up resolving this privately. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of this proceeds. All right, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me this evening. I'll check you tomorrow for more updates of your most high-profile cases going on around the country. Thanks so much. This has been your girl, Miss Public Info, on the Casting Court TV show. All right, guys, stay safe.